Like, you killed him. What do you mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nah, it's gonna be something, man. Let me pull up this stuff.
We live?
Yep. It's just a good reminder though, when we drop that content, because you know, we have short-term memory when it comes to our people, and yeah, we'll give the preacher millions of dollars, but here these Europeans are showing you, whether you're an officer or not, and if you're on video choking a man out to death, yeah, that's worth that's worth 1.5.
Yeah,
we'll raise $1.5 million just to basically say, yeah, that's what we want the new law to be. So you got cats like Grandmaster Jay and Ozone in jail right now, and you know, we will not get on code to save our lives.
Yeah.
Good contrast between the two right there.
Yeah, let's get this shit going. Somebody got to tell the truth. These niggas scared, man. That's what it is. Niggas scared.
Hello and welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 7 of the 13-week fiscal program of recovery for American prisoners of war. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator as well as Chief Quietwater. And here, as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Before we get started today, as always, we're going to jump into that Lyndon B. Johnson video. And the reason why we do this is to make sure that we continue to put into the audience, put this in front of any of the viewers, that what they say within TV and television, within the media, within any of these outlets, what they say versus what the documents actually say are two different things. So again, as we will listen to, as you'll hear him say after reading off each of these different rights, whether it's the 68, 65, or 64, he's going to relate that back to the Negro. But what we've seen while reading these documents is that the Negro was nowhere to be found within these documents. So you have to ask yourself the question, why is he referring specifically to the Negro when the Negro was never specifically mentioned within these documents? And that is key. And that's something that they continue to do within, you know, media, as far as talking about our group, but never having anything as far as laws, acts, or anything with any type of teeth, or that holds any type of power behind it. They never put us into these documents. So that's the main thing. And the main thing I want you all to continue to listen for and continue to wrap around your heads while we do this. Because again, repetition is the key to learning. So we have to get this until it actually sticks, until it actually clicks for everybody. And I'll let you all kind of build on that before we actually play the video.
Yeah, I think it's just important for people to know, again, as we go through and have been going through all of the documents that we've been reading, it just continues to highlight, you know, what we thought versus what is in black and white on paper in regards to the Civil War, in regards to, you know, all these different documents. We were thinking one thing because this is what we were told, this is what we were taught in school. And then you get a live video from a president that's saying one thing, but you can't go back and reference nowhere in any documentation where what this man's saying is in writing. So I think that we just have to continue to, we have to read and we have to understand what it is that they're just trying to feed us, and understand that we can't just listen to everything that the TV tells us and everything that we're told. We got to seek the information ourselves.
Correct. Keep Alligator.
Yeah, I'm with y'all on that. It's kind of embarrassing that they'll always throw up an individual during that time, where there's Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They'll put, it's almost like characters or celebrity in our face, but they never show the documents. So I can understand why this channel can be a little bit tedious, monotonous. It's not a lot of entertainment involved with it, because as adults, you know, we're just trying to leave breadcrumbs for the next generation. You know, everybody that's adults out here with kids or grandkids, we all can be out here actively participating in mega culture. So what we're showing you is whether these people look like us or not, they're only pointing toward characters in the civil rights movement. Nobody ever goes to the documents. And the reason for that is what we're exposing. Nobody points to the documents because we were never specifically recognized by this government, which means we were never specifically included or protected under this government. And we're at a point right now under United States government history where if we don't stand up and do some radical things in the near coming future, the toilet's already been flushed. It's just a matter of us going down the hole. Chief Biko, we don't hear anything.
Included in the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century. I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we affirmed through law that men equal under God are also equal when they seek a job, when they go to get a meal in a restaurant, or when they seek lodging for the night in any state in the Union. And now the Negro families no longer suffer the humiliation of being turned away because of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law for every citizen in this land the most basic right of democracy, the right of a citizen to vote in an election in his country. In the 5 states where the act had its greater impact, Negro voter registration has already more than doubled. Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life. We all know that the roots of injustice run deep, but violence cannot redress a solitary wrong or remedy a single unfairness. And we just must put our shoulders together and put a stop to both. The time is here. Action must be now.
Yeah, if we can clear up real quick, Chief Biko, before we move to the next section. President Lyndon Baines Johnson clearly says in that video that Abraham Lincoln over 100 years ago, which would have been 1863, 1865, did an Emancipation Proclamation, but it was not a fact. So if the president said that, and then you get in 1964, desegregation, which is another term for we're going to back off of intense military occupation, where you can be killed if you're found in the wrong area. And then in 1965, if he gave, quote unquote, the Negro the right to vote. And then in 1968, he's saying that he gave the Negro the right to housing. What we're showing you is that debunks the lies that you were told in school, because you were told that there was a civil war that was fought to free you and that the Emancipation Proclamation supposedly freed you. What we're showing you based on government documents is you did not become a citizen of the United States government until 1964, which was desegregation. And then you were not allowed to participate and vote under the United States government until 1965. And then the United States government did not take the responsibility to house you until 1968. So we're showing you that what you've been told in school was a lie. Your first president was Lyndon Baines Johnson. We're challenging anybody, don't come tongue wrestling, bring your documents and prove otherwise. We're showing you based on record and based on what that man just said in that video. He told you what the Negro now has rights of. So I thought you had that in 1865. So what we're saying on this channel is there was no Civil War. There was an undeclared Seminole Wars that was going on. That shit went on from the time Georgia was established up until 1965. You only got included with the right to vote and desegregation and housing by default, because you were never specified through this government. Congress makes their law. They've never defined what Negro, Black, or colored is. This shit ain't hard, but it is hard for us to understand it because it's the lies we've been told. Y'all want to build on that a little bit? Just, you know, why we keep hammering home what they're saying out their mouth and what the government actually wrote in record as to what happened. The shit, it don't go together. Chief Quietwater.
I mean, again, I'm just going back to what I mentioned before. We have to seek this information ourselves instead of just listening to what we are being told, sending our kids to school and what the teacher and the curriculum tells them is gospel. We have to seek this information and know ourselves that it's not right. You know, the information is inaccurate. We have documents to prove it. And I just think that it comes from lack of knowledge. And we just have to continue to seek the knowledge and continue to spread the knowledge. So I think that everybody that taps in and listens to us on Sundays, I think that we're all on the same page, that is information that is definitely needed.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I say it just shows the importance of reading for yourself versus being told something or spoon-fed something. Just going back to that Lyndon B. Johnson video of how he stated, you know, the Negro has these rights and the Negro has this, and even the voiceover before we got into his speech, how it stated that the 1968 was primarily about the fair housing. So it skipped over a whole part, which I can speak for myself, had no idea it talked about the Indians' rights.
Right.
So how even the voiceover, and again, going back to the propaganda, the manipulation of, again, taken from a video or taken from what somebody is telling you versus actually reading the documents, you would have no idea that Indians had anything within this document. Just because strictly off this video and strictly off of what's been told to you, whether it's in school, on your radio stations, by your quote unquote leaders, whether that's somebody in the church or any type of, you know, organization that's supposed to be for your people. If you're just going off of what is being told versus actually reading the documents for yourself, you'll have no idea of what is actually true or not. Going back to what you stated, Chief Quietwater, with, you know, the lack of education or misinformation that's being given. So it's just, again, just stress the importance of reading the documents for yourself, which is why we always provide the proof of claim, provide these documents for you all to go ahead and read them for yourselves, because if we were just out here, like Chief Alligator stated, tongue wrestling, just telling you stuff, we would be doing the same thing. So that's why, you know, we always show these contradictions, and again, just provide that those documents for you all to read for yourself, because it's definitely needed. It's imperative for us. So with that, we'll jump into this week's American Inventor. And I think we got a good one today. Actually, a pretty young fella. He actually passed away. It's the American Inventor for today is going to be Dennis W. Weatherby. He was born December 4th, 1959, passed away September 15th, 2007. Was born in Alabama, Brighton, Alabama to be exact. This is the patent that he received, and it's the automatic dishwasher detergent composition. So if you're, familiar with, or if you use a dishwasher, you have those little packs that you put in your dishwasher to go ahead and, they dissolve and clean your dishes. So he is credited for, creating the solution to where it didn't stain your dishes. Because before this invention, whenever you had those detergent packs, they would stain your dishes, stain the dishwasher, et cetera, et cetera. So he is credited for that, him along with another person, Brian J. Rosal. But just wanted to, give some feedback here. At age 27, Weatherby made this major breakthrough, again, along with his partner. He and his team developed a solution that did not stain the dishes. December 22nd, 1987, Weatherby received the U.S. patent, which is number 4714562, for, again, that automatic dishwasher detergent composition. This solution still serves as the basic formula behind all lemon-scented cleaning products that contain bleach. Procter & Gamble continue to call the product Cascade dishwashing detergent. So that's pretty much what he made it for, that Cascade dishwashing detergent. I know they're still around today, and it will become the company's most popular detergent brand sold since then. So this, again, is created by an American, and that is Dennis W. Weatherby. And that patent number, again, is 4714562. And as far as I know, I don't believe his family gets any residuals or anything like that off of this invention. If anything, it'd probably be Procter & Gamble, since that's the pretty much patent company that utilizes this particular patent.
What's the date again?
That's going to be December 22nd, 1987. And this is Dennis W. Weatherby. All right. And next, for the Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote, who had that for this week?
Me.
All right, go ahead and share my screen. And which quote do this week?
Can you scroll down some? I will do 6. Okay, leadership is usually superimposed for the purpose of directing the course of the ostracized group along same lines. This was accomplished during the days of slavery by restricting the assembly of Negroes to certain times and places and compelling them to meet in the presence of a stipulated number of the wisest and discreetest men of the community. These supervisors of the conduct of Negroes would prevent them from learning the truth, which might make them unruly or ambitious to become free. So I think this goes back to what we've been saying tonight in regards to not being told what this information is and actually seeking the truth and reading ourselves. You don't have to have a quote unquote supervisor over you to direct you and to tell you what you need to learn and what's important and what's not important for your journey in life. So I think that this is good this week to just kind of piggyback on what we've been talking about.
Definitely agree with that. Just being, like you stated, just making sure we have the right people in place. Again, vetting those, especially, the preacher. Those are always the ones that continue to just quiet the storm whenever, the American gets rowdy. Those are the first people that always get put out whenever there's something tragic that happens to our group. And again, kind of just in comparing, contrasting to, what we've seen recently, You know, we have no problem with giving those men who are supposed to be the wisest and discreetest of the community, you know, our funds when it comes to any activity, when it comes to those individuals who are willing to, you know, have, you know, stick talk per se, that actually want to say, okay, we're gonna have to protect ourselves. You just cast them away. No GoFundMe's, no nothing. Won't give them $1. Versus, you know, the European, the white man, what's his name, Neely, you know, raised 1.5 million already just to fight his lawsuit. So again, it just shows the puts us on the scale to see what we as a group hold as far as what's important, the belief system versus, you know, the first law of nature, which is, you know, self-preservation. So it kind of just makes, it kind of shows that we aren't in alignment when it comes to that. If we're holding, you know, these individuals and they're basically supervising the community. With that, go ahead and pass it to you, Chief Alligator, with this week's legal definitions and maroon historical points.
All right, legal definitions. The first one, American, indigenous to America. Descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Third definition, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. 5th definition, school, any institution in which instruction is given in a particular discipline. 6, education, an enlightening experience. 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, and strength, the action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. We'll do the maroon points. First point was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. 5, maroons knew their enemies' language, defenses, and plans. And while we're going to the 1968 Civil Rights Act, if you can go to Title II and the definition of Indian, Chief Biko. And I'm going to make a public apology. I was wrong last week. I said that Daniel Penning, the guy that choked out the guy on the New York subway on video, I said that he would not be arrested, and I stand corrected on that. They did arrest him this week, but they did not charge him with murder. They charged him with manslaughter. And as Chief Biko just mentioned, in less than 5 business days, he's already raised $1.5 million. So as I said last week, don't let the media get you caught up with the word homeless, because again, if your kid is over 18 and living with you, by definition, your kid is homeless. So let's not go down that rabbit hole that this man was homeless. That deserves him to be murdered on video. And let's also keep in mind, this man was not a law enforcement officer, and him being a veteran of the armed services has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you choked a man to death for 15 minutes. So I stand corrected on that. The people in New York caused enough hell to get charges filed. But pay attention to what pay attention to how they play to win. Whether it's an officer on video killing one of us, or whether it's an everyday civilian like this guy, Daniel, right or wrong, they stand with their people. What we like to do is nitpick why we won't stand with our people. Most recently in my lifetime would be Grandmaster Jay. That man sitting in federal prison right now, and Breonna Taylor never had a murder trial. So they got rid of 2 niggas for the price of 1. They killed Breonna Taylor on a bogus ass search warrant. And then they locked Grandmaster Jay up for even trying to bring awareness to the case. We don't raise money for his defense fund. There's also another gentleman by the name of Ozone who actually killed a Florida police officer about 1.5 years ago. And it's not on video. We don't really know what happened. We just know it was a tussle. He was legally armed. And again, we don't support his GoFundMe, and they're trying to give him the death penalty. So when people say we're radical or we're outside the box or we're talking crazy, no, we're just being real. And shout out to Daniel Penny in that situation in New York, because we get a chance to have an I told you so moment. Europeans don't nitpick who they're going to support when they kill one of us. If I was European, that's a hell of a come up to catch me a nigga slipping, kill him, and if I get caught, I know my people gonna put $1 million in my GoFundMe. Yeah, that might put a battery in my back too if I'm 20 years old and I'm a European. So you got to look at it from their side of the fence too. But for us, the people that do stand up and that's willing to ride and protect this group of people, if we're not going to donate to those people, then it's like we're ass backers. We'll donate to TD Jakes, right? It's a lot of people that make you feel good online or when you go to their Sunday services or their Saturday services. But this Daniel Penny situation is a real litmus test for us because he killed the man on video and he's sitting on 1 million strong in less than 5 business days. So that's something we got to think about as a group of people. So let's get to this Title II real quick. Why this is important, why we're going to keep beating you upside the head with it as long as we're reading this document. What we are saying and what we are showing you with proof of claim, the United States Congress has never defined what a Negro is, what Black is, or what a colored is, or what an Afro-American is. But what the United States Congress did define is what an Indian is. So under these definitions, there's 4 of them. We've got the definition for what an Indian tribe is. It means any tribe, band, or other group of Indians subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and recognized as possessing powers of self-government. That's the Europeans' definition of what an Indian tribe is. The second definition is powers of self-government, means and includes all governmental powers possessed by an Indian tribe, executive, legislative, and judicial, and all offices, bodies, and tribunals by and through which they are executed, including courts of Indian offenses, and means the inherent power of Indian tribes hereby recognize and affirm to exercise criminal jurisdiction over all Indians. That's the second definition. The third definition, Indian court, means any Indian tribal court or court of Indian offense. And the fourth definition, what is an Indian? Any person who would be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States as an Indian under Section 1153, Title 18, United States Code. If that person were to commit an offense listed in that section in Indian country to which that section applies. So what we're showing you is there's 4 specific definitions for Indian, Indian tribe, powers of self-government, and Indian court. There is no document where Congress describes what a Negro is, what powers of self-government the Negro has, what's a Negro court, and what a Negro is. Same thing for Black, same thing for Afro-Americans, same thing for colored. Thus, what does that make us? That makes us fucking prisoners of war. If you've never been written into the government, you're outside of it. So does it surprise you that you're the only one getting choked out on video by everyday Europeans and they'll raise $1.5 million not to find that man guilty? It's not hard. Does it surprise you that the government killed King, killed Malcolm X, locked up all the Black Panthers? Like, this isn't slavery, y'all. Let's get into the reading today, but we're going to continue to just show this until it clicks to people, because when it clicks, then we have a reason to protest and we have a reason to be out and at these state buildings and these federal buildings, because the first thing we need to do is make this government recognize us. If we're going to participate and play their game, it has to recognize who we are. It's never done it. And if anybody feels that this government has, drop the proof of claim in the comments section or in the live chat. We've been waiting for over 2 years. Drop the document where Congress defined what a Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American is. We're waiting on it. So we're going to get into the bill tonight. All right, so we're in the administrative section. And where
Yeah,
am I?
it should be, let me see, section 809F. Let me see, I might be down one more or up. Hold on. Would be
That's 808.
808, yeah, 809. Okay,
Okay.
right here.
All right, the provisions of law and executive orders to which subsection E6 applies are, so we got Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Age Discrimination Act of 1975, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, Section 1978 of the Revised Statutes, Section 8 of the Small Business Act, Section 527 of the National Housing Act, Section 109 of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, Executive Orders 11063, 1246, 11625, 12250, 12259, and 12432, and any other provision of law which the Secretary specifies by publication in the Federal Register for the purpose of this section. All right, to put this in context, let's scroll up a little bit to see what the title was, because I'm picking up at the end of a section for clarity. All right, so we're under the Housing and Urban Development and Administration. So that's the section I just finished up. We're talking about the administration department under this housing, under the Housing Act. All right, so I'll go ahead and proceed. So now we're jumping into education and consolation. Immediately after the enactment of this title, the Secretary shall commence such educational and conciliatory activities as in his judgment will further the purposes of this title. He shall call conferences of persons in the housing industry and other interested parties to acquaint them with the provisions of this title and his suggested means of implementing it, and shall endeavor with their advice to work out programs of voluntary compliance and of enforcement. He may pay per diem, travel, and transportation expenses for persons attending such conferences as provided in Section 5703 of Title V of the United States Code. He shall consult with state and local officials and other interested parties to learn the extent, if any, to which housing discrimination exists in their state or locality, and whether and how state or local enforcement programs might be utilized to combat such discrimination in connection with or in place of the Secretary's enforcement of this title. The Secretary shall issue reports on such conferences and consultations as he deems appropriate. So this section right here is just talking about the powers of the Secretary and all of the or some of the duties that the Secretary has. You know, they can give you a per diem, they can pay for your travel, you know, give you a daily stipend to eat. And they also have to take minutes and record those minutes when they're having their meetings. That's what I'm taking from that section. Anything y'all want to say on that, or you good?
It's pretty clear. I'm good.
Pretty good on that.
All right, so we'll go down to administrative enforcement, preliminary matters. Complaints and answers. An aggrieved person may, not later than 1 year after an alleged discriminatory housing practice has occurred or terminated, file a complaint with the Secretary alleging such discriminatory housing practices. The Secretary, on the Secretary's own initiative, may also file such a complaint. Such complaint shall be in writing and shall contain such information and be in such form as the Secretary requires. The Secretary may also investigate housing practices to determine whether a complaint should be brought under this section. Upon the filing of such a complaint, the Secretary shall serve notice upon the aggrieved person, acknowledging such filing and advising the aggrieved person of the time limits and choice of forms provided under this title. So I'm gonna stop right there real quick. It sounds like they can get you caught up in a kangaroo court process situation. You do have a year to file your grievance. But once you file your grievance, the secretary can inform you of how she wants you to file your grievance. You see what I'm saying? So having experience with filing stuff, she may want it on a certain type of letterhead, and the letters may have to be a certain space, this, that, and the third. And then she may not even take that your claim that you filed. She may tell you you got to go to a different department. So that's what I'm taking from this is there's a lot of power in this secretary's hand. She can neatly avoid you or prolong your situation, even if you did file within that first year. Anything y'all want to say?
No, I definitely agree with that. Kind of just go back to asking the question, who were these secretaries? Were they, again, Americans, or were they European US citizens? I think we know that answer. So again, at this time, if they wanted to, like you stated, just to pretty much, you know, put you in a loop and just continue to, like you stated, prolong your course or just completely ignore it, they could, based off of what we're reading here. And they have the power to do that. So yeah, just another way to continue to just benign and neglect or ignore the American, if you were to be put into the system, or if you were to even, try to go through this this process.
And again, it comes back to us not reading, us not, going through procedures to complete a goal. It just goes back to the same thing.
All right, I'll pick back up. The secretary shall, not later than 10 days after such filing or the identification of an additional respondent under paragraph 2, serve on the respondent a notice identifying the alleged discriminatory housing practice and advise such respondent of the procedural rights and obligations of respondents under this title, together with a copy of the original complaint. I think it's safe to say probably a lot of our people probably weren't going through this process because it's we don't do it today. Most of us are scared of court processes or any type of process where steps have to be taken in an orderly manner. We run away from that. That's just been my experience in my lifetime dealing with male Negroes mainly. We talk loud, but when it really comes to walking through stuff and getting stuff done, that's when, from my experience, niggas fall to the wayside. Niggas come up with all kind of excuses about, why they don't want to stand up and stand on their square to show themselves approved. Each respondent may file not later than 10 days after receipt of notice from the secretary in answer to such complaint. And the secretary shall make an investigation of the alleged discriminatory housing practice and complete such investigation within 100 days after the filing of complaint, or when the secretary takes further action under subsection F2 with respect to a complaint within 100 days after the commencement of such further action, unless it is impracticable to do so. So you file your complaint, they got 100 days before, she has to respond to you. And who's to say that they're going to even take it serious? Again, there's just a lot of things. You lay a foundation down, but then when you start going live and start trying to live within it, I can just see a lot of issues coming up, right? Growing up, you heard terms like slumlords, right? I think Donald Trump was even labeled a slumlord at one point with his New York residence. And then the guy that owned the, what was that basketball team a couple of years back, where he got caught saying how he didn't want his mistress to be seen with the basketball players.
Donald Sterling, I think.
Donald Sterling, same thing, where they were saying he was a slumlord. So, there was a way around this for those people who were invested with the government as far as housing was concerned, that your complaints could just get caught up in an endless kangaroo court cycle. Let's see. So I'm at C, if the secretary is unable to complete the investigation within 100 days after the filing of the complaint, or when the secretary takes further action under subsection F2 with respect to a complaint within 100 days after the commencement of such further action, the secretary shall notify the complainant and respondent in writing of the reasons for not doing so. So yeah, that's her out. At 100 days, she can move forward, or she can tell you why she's not even going to waste her time to move forward with the process. Complaints and answers shall be under oath or affirmation meaning affidavit, and may be reasonably and fairly amended at any time. A person who was not named as a respondent in a complaint, but who was identified as a respondent in the course of investigation, may be joined as an additional or substitute respondent upon written notice under paragraph 1 to such person from the secretary. So again, we're just reading secretary powers. You know, everything starts and stops with this secretary when it comes to your complaints with housing. Such notice, in addition to meeting the requirements of paragraph 1, shall explain the basis for the secretary's belief that the person to whom the notice is addressed is properly joined as a respondent. Investigative report and conciliation. During the beginning period with the filing of such complaint and ending with the filing of a charge or dismissal by the secretary shall, to the extent feasible, engage in conciliation with respect to such complaint. So here we go again. Her powers are damn near unlimited. She can file a charge or she can dismiss it. It's all up to that secretary. A conciliation agreement arising out of such conciliation shall be an agreement between the respondent and the complainant, and shall be subject to approval by the secretary. A conciliation agreement may provide for binding arbitration of the dispute arising for the complaint. Any such arbitration that results from a conciliation agreement may award appropriate relief, including monetary relief. This is a kangaroo court. The secretary is acting as if they're judged through the judicial branch. So this is a way to kind of nullify any gripes that come through the housing. That secretary can knock that shit
They can
down.
just
Chief
kill it
Firewater.
right there.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was
Chief.
just gonna say they could just kill it right there. So it, you know, they can't escalate it or anything else because the secretary pretty much has to say so in the determination of how it goes.
Kind of going back to what you said too, just shows how you can have a slumlord, somebody who's probably deep enough to pay off a secretary or just give them some hush money. Yeah, don't even worry about that. We good to go. So yeah, so you can start to see how, yeah, a lot of these complaints, which I'm pretty sure were valid complaints, if our people were in these, you know, particular dwellings and stuff like that, just get brushed aside and nothing happens. So yeah, it just shows you again that this system was not built for us.
All right, I'll pick up on 4. Each conciliation agreement shall be made public unless the complainant and respondent otherwise agree, and the secretary determines that disclosure is not required to further the purpose of this title. At the end of each investigation under this section, the secretary shall prepare a final investigative report containing the names and dates of contacts with witnesses, a summary and the dates of correspondence and other contacts with the aggrieved person and the respondent, a summary description of other pertinent records, a summary of witness statements, and answer to interrogatories. Anybody who's been through a civil proceeding, interrogatories is during the discovery period. So again, the secretary is acting as if she's a damn judge. It's a kangaroo court. It's a kangaroo court. It's an in-house process. A final report under this paragraph may be amended if additional evidence is later discovered. Failure to comply with conciliation agreement. Whenever the secretary has reasonable cause to believe that a respondent has breached a conciliation agreement, the secretary shall refer the matter to the attorney general with a recommendation that a civil action be filed under section 814 for the enforcement of such agreement. The only person that she has to turn the ball over to is the attorney general. Nobody's above her but the attorney general in their system. Anybody else want to pick up and build, or anybody want to share anything on that? Basically, you see that a lot today with companies where they'll take you through their process. Anytime you're going through a company's process of reconciliation, it's a kangaroo court process, right? Because if they decide for whatever reason to not, rule in your favor, then they always tell you, hey, you know, you can always make it a civil matter, which means you would bring them into a court jurisdiction.
So it's
And that-
kind of like arbitration too. Is that the same thing?
When you say arbiter, you talking about with the kangaroo court process?
Yeah. Basically, that's what it is, right? It's like an arbitration or
Yeah, just
same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, bullshit process. And it depends on how much money is involved or currency is involved. If it's worth your while, that's going to determine whether you want to take them to court or not.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like you said, just an appeals process, but you're appealing to the same people that
Right.
hold each seat. So like you say, the judge, jury, and prosecution. So it's like, okay, whatever they decide or however they feeling is how your case is going to go in this particular situation. I did see here too, like whenever the secretary has reasonable cause, that's again, like you stated, if we feel escalating this up to the attorney general, if I'm the secretary, then I'll go ahead and let it escalate, but it doesn't have to get to that point if I don't deem it being reasonable. So again, just kind of showing that power of the secretary. And if they do want to hand it off only for the respondent's case, then I can hand that off to the attorney general. So yeah, just showing a lot of the powers of that secretary. I'll pick up here. We on D. Prohibitions and requirements with respect to disclosure of information. Number one, nothing said or done in the course of conciliation under this title may be made public or used as evidence in a subsequent proceeding under this title without the written consent of the person concerned. Number two, notwithstanding paragraph 1, the secretary shall make available to the aggrieved person and the respondent at any time upon request following completion of the secretary's investigation, information derived from an investigation and any final investigative report relating to that investigation. E, prompt judicial action. 1, if the secretary concludes at any time following the filing of a complaint that prompt judicial action is necessary to carry out the purposes of this title, the secretary may authorize a civil action for appropriate temporary or preliminary relief pending final disposition of the complaint under this section. So kind of going back to what you stated there too, Chief Quietwater, if they deem it necessary to, take it to a civil court, then they'll go ahead and allow that as far as this secretary. So still involving the secretary, and they have to be able to make that decision, or they have the power to make that decision to say, hey, if we want to escalate this up to another further matter. But again, the ball can still stop at the secretary if need be. And again, just shows you again how long this stuff can be drawn out. So we went from a year of you having to file your complaint, then additional 100 days on top of that. And I think there was another 100 days if there was for you to even respond or pretty much appeal whatever that decision was. Now we have another system in which it can be escalated to. So for your complaint, that could be something that you need immediate action for because you'll be kicked out within the next 2 months or a month.
Right.
Your shit can be extended to 2 years, and now you just wasted money, resources, everything that you could. So it really doesn't even matter at this point.
Like really not even worth it.
Correct.
Mhm.
Let me see here. Upon receipt of such an authorization, the Attorney General shall promptly commence and maintain such an action. Any temporary restraining order or other order granting preliminary or temporary relief shall be issued in accordance with the federal rules of civil procedure. The commencement of a civil action under the subsection does not affect the initiation or continuation of administrative proceedings under this section in section 812 of this title. So again, just showing the powers of pretty much the secretary, and then once it is passed off to any type of civil court, of what procedures they have to follow once they're in that particular civil action or civil court procedure. Let me see here. Whenever the secretary has reason to believe that a basis may exist for the commencement of proceedings against any respondent under section 814A and 814C, or for proceedings by any governmental licensing or supervisory authorities, the secretary shall transmit the information upon which such belief is based to the Attorney General or to such authorities as the case may be. So again, showing that what the Secretary has to do or they're responsible for, if again, they deem it to be reasonable, to again escalate these matters to the Attorney General or whoever that authority would be, again, over these probably more than likely the dwellings. So we have here F, referral for state or local proceedings. Whenever a complaint alleges a discriminatory housing practice, A, within the jurisdiction of a state or local public agency, and as to which such agency has been certified by the Secretary under this subsection, the Secretary shall refer such complaint to that certified agency before taking any action with respect to such complaint. So it seems here that they have to pretty much defer to whichever agency is over these public housing within that state or local government. They have to defer to that particular agency before they can actually pretty much view any complaint that had been proposed or brought up to them. So again, kind of just going back and forth between, now we're seeing a local or county government, you could say the state, and then into the federal, which would be pretty much the Secretary. You see here too, except with the consent of such certified agency, the Secretary, after the referral is made, shall take no further action with respect to such complaint unless the certified agency has failed to commence proceedings with respect to the complaint before the end of the 30th day, the date of such referral. The certified agency, having so commenced such proceedings, fails to carry forward such proceedings with reasonable promptness, or the Secretary determines that the certified agency no longer qualifies for certification under this subsection with respect to the relevant jurisdiction. So it seems they might have a much more speedy process when it comes to these certified agencies underneath, the state and local public agencies. So again, basically what we saw with the Secretary having 100 days, they only give them 30 days from the actual complaint when it comes to these agencies. And if they aren't filed within that, certain promptness, that's when the Secretary steps in. Anything you all kind of take from that?
Yeah. What's jumping out to me is we got to put this in real time. What we're reading, this 1968 Civil Rights Act, this was our grandparents. This would be my grandparents. Because my parents in, 1968, well, my mom would have been 10th grade. My father would have already been graduated. So yeah, this pertains to my grandparents. So the question we have to ask as the American, let me speak for myself. Both my father and my mother, their bloodlines go back to what we know as Georgia. Certain family members were leaving the country for opportunities. So they may go to New York, they may go to Florida, they may go to the Carolinas, Chicago, whatever was popping, some people left. What we have to understand, or for my generation, Generation X, what we have to understand is when they left the country and moved to a quote unquote city, we're still kind of segregated, even though the federal government said, all right, we ain't gonna blow your head off if you drinking from a whites only water fountain, we gonna take them signs down. We were still relegated to projects. So when we put this in context, I'm going, maybe the chat can help, whoever monitor, Chief Quietwater, if you monitoring the chat, maybe somebody can help make this document come to life. What percentage would y'all say of our people lived in housing projects in 1968 in any major city? Because most of us were relegated to projects. That's what this is all about right here. They're desegregating, saying no more intense military occupation against the Negro. But they're still segregating you because they're saying, okay, we have these concentration camps, AKA projects, that we're going to have y'all living in. And a lot of us, our parents grew up in those projects. But what's funny is we can still to this day go back to the country. So our families come from the country, but those that left the country, they had to come up in projects. Y'all want to build on that? Because that's basically what we're reading right now, how they're just moving a group of people into a designated section within a city. So if we use New York, for example, because we're talking about it with the murder, all them different projects that we tend to glorify projects through rap music. But in reality, it's nothing to glorify historically, because a project is no different than a reservation. You're occupied and you're relegated to a certain section or a certain area. There, just like the thumbnail on this video shows, what's the difference between a reservation and a fucking housing project?
Right.
Don't they get rations on reservations?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be the equivalent of your food stamps and your government cheese that generation grew up under? I'm gonna stop right there and let y'all build on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people did leave the country, and the people in the country who stayed, still took care of the land, still, did their best to keep up the land and things like that. I mean, even to this day, families who still have homes and things in the country, the family collectively try to put the money together to make sure that the taxes are paid and stuff like that. But the people who did go north or go to different cities across the US for better opportunities, yeah, there were better opportunities that they thought at that time. But like you said, a lot of them were sectioned off, to have to stay in these already government funded projects and dwellings. So I think that at that time, they probably weren't looking at it like that. And that's the reason why they were okay with going. And now here we are 30, 40, 50 years later, and the damage was done already. So again, it's like we're reactionary rather than, seeing things for what it is before we get too deep into it.
I definitely can see that. I can definitely see that. Just speaking from my family lineage, definitely moved to New York. Not sure, definitely sometime in the 50s, because that's when both of my parents were born. Not necessarily in any projects or anything like that, but I could definitely tell or, see that they were in certain, I'll probably say certain areas. Anybody who possibly may be familiar with like, I don't know, Jamaica, Queens or Corona, something like that, can possibly, bring light or make that come to light as far as what that demographic was. I know my mom would always say it was a lot of Hispanics around that area. So even in saying that, you can see, okay, maybe you weren't segregated into, a particular project, like a project home or anything, but you're close by it. And if you're not, you're still within a certain demographic. You're separate from, what would be your Europeans or whoever these other groups of people may be. So I could definitely see that, because she would be familiar. They would definitely be familiar with, that whole area, not too far from, said projects, but not in there, but again, not too far. So you would still be confined in this area. And then, just having them talk about, having to catch trains to go to these different places and seeing the difference in your certain sides.
Yeah. Cross the railroad tracks and stuff like that.
Correct. Stuff like that, even in those major cities for sure. So, but
there's some people in the chat too that that said that, yes, Miss Lita said that her granny came from Mississippi, moved to Chicago, and yes, they did live in the projects. She says she's now 81 years old. Sea Goddess said that her paternal grandparents tried to buy a house in the so-called white neighborhood and the seller refused. So that was going on, back then too. They didn't want you in certain neighborhoods. They would refuse to sell to you back then. And then of course there was redlining back then as well, and wouldn't give you a loan, even though you may have went north and worked in the steel mills and the, car industry. You were making the money, but you still couldn't have the opportunity to purchase homes. So you were left to just rent, So that's kind of some of the some of the comments.
Definitely see that. And like you stated too, having family that still were down south. I'm pretty sure a lot of everybody pretty much on the chat, as well as on the panel, can attest to like having stories of always coming down south for the summer.
Mhm.
So you're
Yeah.
moving up to, north, but coming down south to stay with, if your grandparents are there or your family, and just seeing that you still had all this land and everything like that. So that's definitely, I think, relevant for a lot of people, especially our group.
Yeah.
Right. And keep in mind that our families, like if I'm using my family, for example, coming out of Georgia, they went to damn near every major city that we're at. Detroit, New York, you know what I'm saying? So it just depends on what great uncle or great aunt or uncle you're talking about. But I think what's important for us is the generation, your generation, Chief Biko, and the generation behind you, less than 10% of them are going to get this information because we're going through something right now that we're calling gentrification. But isn't this just another version of the Indian Removal Act or the 1968 Housing Project Act?
Yep.
Meaning they're moving us. So they moved us into housing in the 60s and the 70s. Then that generation that had kids in the 70s and 80s, a lot of them wanted a better upbringing for their kids. So that would be my generation, right? So some of us did not grow up in the housing projects, where that first generation before was forced to grow up in housing projects if you left the country, right? Wherever your people come from. But this generation, look at what they're doing now. Those neighborhoods that we were first moving into during the 70s, a lot of those people have died off, and the kids from my generation did not keep the house that was paid for, right? And then you add the chemical warfare era, the crack era, and the cocaine era, that decimated our neighborhoods because we never had communities. In my lifetime, we've never had a community. So when we use that word community, we're really lying to ourselves. A community means you have a hospital, a bank, you see what I'm saying? A grocery store, all the essentials for your people are right there. I've never seen that growing up, right? I don't know of a quote unquote all-American hospital in any major city where we go to and it's us in the hospital, or, an American grocery store, right? So this generation going through gentrification, now they're changing the names of the streets. They're changing the names of the neighborhoods that we remember when we were growing up as historically our neighborhoods, right? Now we've been moved out after the 08 housing market crash, right? You fast forward 14, 15 years later, we've been moved out. So this generation has nothing to really hold on to as to see any type of control that we have. So I really think we really need to be careful with that word gentrification, because that's really war being waged on us, because you're moving other people in and you're moving us out of areas or territory that we historically were in. So now we're just in no man's land. And this has happened in every major city that we've been, including New York. And I'm gonna keep going back to New York because that was the birth of hip hop. That was the birth of alpha males from my generation speaking to us as kids growing up, giving us self-confidence, not even entertaining racism. You can't grow up listening to Eric B. Rakim and EPMD and Run DMC and all these different people that came out of New York and be intimidated, right? NWA, all these different groups that came out. Now we're at a point where Europeans are choking us out on the train in New York. I think that's a critical sign that we're not in New York anymore like that, is what I'm saying. Because what I remember of New York from my generation, those were razor blade carrying cats, back when we were young, they was on trains, that was unheard of for my generation. So the fact that that happened and Europeans are standing on it, like, yeah, we're going to fund this guy. I think that's a litmus test that not only New York, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, all of these cities where we think that we are the majority, we've been gentrified. And I think New York is just ground zero for other cities to follow suit, just like the COVID-19 test. If they could run it on New York, they could run it all over. Y'all want to build on
And
that?
then another thing that I noticed that a lot of major cities are doing, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago as well, is that you're going to hear a lot of mayors and things like that that are advertising like affordable housing in the inner cities, so that, you know, everybody can afford a house. And that's under a guise of they're going to give you affordable housing where you can own this home, but when it's time to sell that home in that inner city neighborhood where gentrification is really rampant, when it's time to sell, you're not going to reap the benefits of that full appreciation of that home, because a part of the profit from that sale goes back to the city or the county where you bought that affordable home for. So it's that's what they're doing. I know that they're doing that here in Atlanta. They're promoting it, and we are the ones who are buying into it. And it's just going to be another ghetto. I mean, another project, another ghetto, you know. So that's
Say that one more
definitely what's
time.
going on.
You're saying that in Atlanta, they're making it sound like you're getting an affordable home, but
So basically, this affordable home initiative is it's called they're selling these houses through the land bank of whatever city, Atlanta Land Bank. So you own the structure of the home, but you don't own the land. So when it's time to sell that property, a percentage of that profit goes back to the city.
right.
So you don't get that full $200,000-$300,000 like these people did in the inner city, you know, of Atlanta these days. A portion of that is going back to the city. They
And
have it broken down in a formulated percentage in regards to however much it appreciates, you only get this amount back.
when did they start doing that?
It's been happening, but I know that the mayor of Atlanta is really, really enforcing it now, because you'll see these brand new townhome and home communities that's new construction. And it's enticing because, you know, one of us get to buy a brand new home in a neighborhood right down the street from a $400,000, $500,000 neighborhood. But what they're telling you, but we're not reading. So we thinking it's a good deal, but it really isn't, because you'll never get that full appreciation of the house when you sell it.
Did we say that they started enforcing that within the last couple of years?
Yeah, when did Andre Dickens become mayor? Because that was one of his big push. Yeah, within the last year.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking that is because that would make sense that cities would itemize through words to get a percentage of the revenue at the sale back. Because remember, a lot of cities were shut down during COVID-19. So that's a strategic way
to get the money back.
Yeah.
Because they know that these people are buying into, you know, gentrification. I mean, the home values are skyrocketing. So we're going to put this nice new affordable home community right smack in the middle of that to get us there, so that we can feel that we are a part of something. But in the end, we're still losing.
Right. You want to finish up this section? Where you at right now, Chief Biko? We hit the
3A. So I'll finish up this I'll finish up this section, and we'll start here on B next week. All right. So we got 3A. The secretary may certify an agency under this subsection only if the secretary determines that the substantive rights protected by such agency in the jurisdiction with respect to which certification is to be made, the procedures followed by such agency, the remedies available to such agency, and the availability of judicial review of such agencies' action are substantially equivalent to those created by and under this title. So again, this title was talking about the referral for state and local proceedings. So again, just talking about the state and local, pretty much governments And now these agencies within these local governments will have to abide by certain procedures. The complaints will have to go to them, how prompt they would have to respond and things of that nature. So we'll stop there for this week. Definitely a good build.
You can, let's close out on that Title II one more time. If you can just go back to Title II.
Definitions.
Yep, and we'll just end strong on that. For anybody who may have came in late on this bill, what we're saying to people and what we're challenging people is Congress makes the United States government's law. Congress, through the 1968 Civil Rights Act, 1 week after this same government assassinated Martin Luther King, they came out with this act. You would think after the killing of MLK that the government was that the Congress of this government, which makes law, you would think that they came out a week later to hurry up and address the Negro, which is what we were being called during that time. What we're showing you is nothing of the sort happened. This is the only document where Congress has defined what an Indian is. There's 4 definitions of Indian: Indian tribe, powers of self-government, what an Indian court is, and what an Indian is. As far as the United States government is concerned, what we're saying to people, we're saying, show us the document. And we're talking to people who run government, constitutional scholars. Show us the document where the Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American has been recognized just like this through Congress, through an act. You can't do it. So what we're asking our people is, why are we calling ourselves something that this government has never recognized? It further shows why California reparations and all this other reparations talk, it can't happen until we first get this government to recognize who we are. We're prisoners of war on our own land through violence and paperwork assassination. They've been waging war on us since the establishment of Georgia, the 13th colony. Georgia was a military buffer state. That was the whole intent of setting up Georgia. 10 years after they set up Georgia, they immediately started attacking areas and what we now know as what we know now as Florida. Thus began the Seminole Wars, which never ended. So we're challenging anybody that's building with us or have been building with us, drop the link from the document where Congress defined what Negro, Black, and colored is. That's a simple question that we can ask any public servant that's in office today. Show us the document where this government has recognized the Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American. And if you can't produce the document, that needs to be the first order of business. Nothing else needs to happen until the American, the real American, gets recognized. We've never been recognized, which is why New York is getting flooded, why they'll take care of illegal citizens before they take care of their prisoner of war class citizens. It's all in our face. They'll house people that don't pay taxes into this fraudulent system. Meanwhile, our people are homeless in that same city. So benign neglect is real. Anything y'all want to share on that? And does anybody in the chat have any rebuttal document that they can show? We're begging people at this point. Show us the document where this government has ever recognized us. It's amazing that we've gone this long ignorant. This is what makes us niggas. This is why when public officials are talking at the federal level, this is why we never come up. This is why we're never implemented in the first 100 days of any president. There's never a goal to address us specifically because they know we've never been recognized. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's intellectual warfare. Go ahead, Chief Water.
No, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that we tapped in on everything. We just have to understand that we weren't included, never was intended to be included. And I think once we get that through our heads, that we'll have a better understanding of where we need to go.
I'm in alignment. Again, just shows the importance of not only, reading these documents, but also just understanding them. understanding, where we are within these documents, which is nowhere. So again, we always state, if they never define our classification, then we are non-existent within this government. So yeah, you may have the footing of a citizen, but you aren't actually a citizen. So yeah, you may have quasi-citizenship, but until we actually define you in anything, until we actually define what, a Black, African-American is, a colored, a Negro, then why are we as the American putting ourselves in these categories?
Let me ask it a simpler way, Chief Biko. Just straight up, why is this so hard for us to understand? Let's cut all the bullshit out and just come straight up the middle with it. What is so hard about understanding this to people who are listening to this video and looking at this screen right now? What's so hard to understand that this government has never defined Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American? What is hard about this? And if you do understand what we're saying, that the government has never lawfully defined what Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American is, why are we sitting around acquiescing to not being recognized by this? It's kind of like it exposes everything. Like your vote, you're never going to get nothing specific as a group of people because you've never been recognized. Can y'all, Chief Quietwater, Chief Biko, can we just cut the bullshit and just really just talk on a street level, if you will? Why is this shit so hard for us to get?
I have no clue. I mean, I get it. I don't know why the masses can't get it. I mean, because it's quite simple. The ones that have this information now, but a lot of people don't have this information. So
yeah, I can't, explain it. It's not, like you said, it's not hard to understand. If you're reading the document and they're defining stuff and you have not seen anything where they have defined you, then you obviously have not been recognized by this government. Plain and simple. It's like you trying out for a basketball team and they list all the motherfucking members of the team and you just trying to pretend like you're this person. You know your name, you know who you are. Why are you trying to say that you're John when your name James? You're not on the team, nigga.
And you show up for practice.
And you show up for practice and everything. You the hardest worker on the team. Well, not even on the team because you ain't on the team, but you just show up for practice every day. Coach looking at you like you stupid. But hey,
But he go ahead and let you play.
He'll go ahead and let you,
Don't get no
play along.
recognition.
You recording no stats. You get no stats name to your name. You don't even get a number. You just blank. So yeah, you may be repping a certain team, United States, or whatever organization or whatever religion, but you ain't recording no stats. So it's like, we appreciate your contribution, but yeah, you ain't getting no trophy at the end of this.
Right. And I just, we can't be repaired if we've never been itemized as a group of people. I guess from an accounting standpoint, I don't think we really understand that to be repaired through reparations, you have to have this group of people that were Jim Crowed and segregated and redlined and lynched and towns burnt. You have to have those people identified so that you can take a timeline and go in chronological order and look at all the damage done. What we're showing you is if you've never been itemized by this government, that means that you're just in a bowl with handicaps, European women, gays, and immigrants. All that shit started right here in the 1968 Civil Rights Act. So there's no way for them to account. So this gives them an out to play dumb. And from a spiritual standpoint, if we walk away from our grandparents, because this is what this whole thing hinges on, if we can get them to forget about their grandparents and back, we got them. If we can get them to just say, let's just do equality for everybody, we got them, because they'll forget about what happened with their grandparents, with all the towns that were flooded and destroyed and all the murders, the lynchings that happened. And nobody was ever charged for it, the church bombings, all of that violence. That's our grandparents. And for us to walk away from that, it gives that immigrant that's coming to be a citizen under the United States government, what you're telling him is, hey, my seniority, it's like you've been on the job 20 years, but the guy who just got hired is like, your 20 years don't mean nothing because you don't want to acknowledge that you've been here 20 years. So we're just all going to just fight for equality. I want the same amount of time off that you got with your 20 years. That's what we're doing under this government when we try to play that all game. No, we got the most seniority on the land than everybody. We supposed to be standing up saying nothing happens until we get our shit straight. Everybody else sit down. Because most of these immigrants, 80% of these immigrants were not here in 1968. Most immigrants, if you ask them where your grandparents from, that's the true litmus test to vet who you talking to. Where your grandparents from? If they are immigrant, 80% of the time they're gonna tell you, oh, my grandparents from Jamaica. Okay, you can listen and maybe learn about what happened to us, but you got no say-so in this conversation. Because your people weren't buried in the soil. It's really just that simple. I'm gonna stop right there. It's just, I don't know what else is gonna take. I understand the power of media. I understand the power of these celebrity figures that they put in front of us on TV when they call us Black, Negro, or colored. But the truth of the matter is that shit's never been recognized by their government.
Right.
So there is no black voter, is what we're trying to tell you. When voting season comes around and they tell you about the black vote, the Democrats are dependent on the black. Show us where Congress has ever recognized black. It's all a game. Can anybody in the chat produce a document, Chief Quietwater, proving otherwise, that we crazy as hell? We don't know.
No, I think they're all on the same page with us.
Funny. So, shit. Yeah, I think we'll land it there then.
Yeah.
Again, till next time, jumping in, almost finished with the document, but again, we're constantly seeing the absence of the reclassified Negro, Black, colored, African American, which is the American, and we're not seeing it in any of these documents. So till next time, we'll continue to read and see if anything pops up, but I think we kind of already know the answer to that.
All right, everybody have an awesome week.
Salute to y'all in the chat.